Well, anyway, I want to say, first of all, good morning to everybody. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming here today. And I'm very happy to be here today at the CHP station in Santa Ana. I always love coming to Santa Ana in the first place. It's a great place to come. But today we're here for a very important reason. But first of all, before we get into that, I want to say thank you to everyone here behind me also. We have Assembly members Spitzer, Runner, Benoit, Gaines, and then we have and Mays, and then we have Senator Correa, Commissioner Brown. Where's Commissioner Brown? Right here. Okay, very important. Don't get hidden behind my broad shoulders. Commissioner Brown, and then we have Gail Butler, the Mother Against Drunk Drivers. I want to thank you very much for being here today, and also Sheriff Corona, who is right over here, all pumped up. Let's see the flags here. Then we have District Attorney Tony Rakokas also with us here today, so thank you very much. So these are all the names. I hope I didn't leave anyone out. In case I did, forgive me. But anyway, as you know, this weekend I signed a bunch of bills that will strengthen our commitment for public safety by cracking down on people under the influence, driving under the influence. Driving under the influence is such an enormous problem in California that it seems like nearly everyone knows someone that got killed or that got injured or arrested because of someone driving impaired. Let me just give you some statistics so you know what I'm talking about here. In 2005, more than 180,000 people were arrested for DUIs. And an average, that means an average of 500 people a day. And last year, nearly 1,000 people were killed in a DUI accident, while more than 22,000 were injured. California has already some of the toughest DUI laws on the books. And the bills that I have signed this last weekend, that I will be handing out here today, make them even tougher by targeting repeated DUI offenders and giving law enforcement more tools to keep dangerous drivers off the road. All 5 bills that I have signed are very, very important, but today we are here for one specific bill, and this is AB 808. They were authored by Assembly members Para and Spitzer, and I want to thank both of them, Assemblywoman Para and Assemblyman Spitzer, for working together in a bipartisan way and really crafting this bill and doing such an outstanding job. So we want to thank you very much for the great, great work that you've done. As you know, this law was named after Steve Ambridge, Assemblyman Spitzer's former chief of staff, who was also not only a great chief of staff, but a wonderful husband. He was an outstanding father. He was an extraordinary public servant and a friend to the people of Orange County. Steve was killed by a driver who was high on methamphetamine. And it was not her first offense, driving while intoxicated. So when I heard that story, it broke my heart. And I jumped into action. I was determined that we take action on this. So I'm proud that California will be the first state in the nation with a law like this. But California deserves always to be number one and the first in the nation on anything. Public safety is government's number one responsibility, and all of these bills go a long way towards ensuring that California roadways are safer for everybody. So thank you very much. And now I would like to bring out a great, great leader, a good friend, my friend Todd Spitzer.
Well, thank you very much, Governor. And, the Governor and I have a little bit in common, and that is that we both are very big supporters of law enforcement. This is a very difficult day for me, Governor, because, as you know, I was a police officer for LAPD for 10 years. In fact, you don't like to acknowledge it, but I was your bodyguard when you used to come to Hollenbeck Station. And and I was a prosecutor in the Orange County District Attorney's Office. But today I stand here really as a as a victim. I want to introduce you to Bridget Ambrose and to Caitlin Ambrose, Steve's widow and Steve's daughter. Steve's in-laws are here. The city council's here. This community was really led by Steve in many, many ways. I mean, Steve is was bigger than life, and his stature was bigger than life. Governor, you now have people who work for you in government, and you understand the relationship that you achieve when you work with these people in government, these public servants who give everything, not because of the pay, but because they're deeply committed to making a change in their community. And Steve was my chief of staff when I was a county supervisor, and I'm saddened today that Nicole Parr isn't here. She and I did this bill. We did Megan's Law on the internet together, and she is a champion of public safety, and I want to thank her from the bottom of my heart for her leadership on this issue. I want to explain the bill because I think you need to understand something very important about this bill. When I was a prosecutor, and I want to thank the District Attorney Tony Rakakis for being here, because Tony Rakakis, like other prosecutors in the state, will have to test this legislation when it becomes law on January 1st. It's going to make a significant change in the law. When I was a prosecutor and I prosecuted somebody for killing another person while under the influence, the most I could charge if they didn't have prior convictions was vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence, an objective standard. This bill says unequivocally in AB 808 that every DMV form, now when you sign your license or renew your license, you will acknowledge in writing with your signature that if you drink and drive and kill someone, you can be, with the prosecutor's discretion, be prosecuted for murder in the state of California. That we are going from a maximum vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence, a maximum of 10 years in prison, and with good time, work time. In this case, Sarah Lynn Ward, who killed Steve, she was sentenced to the maximum, 10 years. She will disgracefully only do 5 years because of credits. This bill is 15 to life for second-degree murder if it's charged. That means you will do 15 years before you're eligible for parole. And I know the district attorney agrees with what I'm about to say. We never want to see this statute used in the state of California. We don't. But we want this statute on the books to get people's attention. We want people to understand that when you drink and drive and you kill somebody, you're going to suffer the consequences. We want people to be educated. We want you as a media to get the word out. The governor feels the same way. We don't want to lock people up because they have a drinking problem and kill people, but we don't want them drinking and driving. We don't want that to happen. This is the mirror from Steve's car, side view mirror. I was called in Sacramento on May 25th, the day that Steve succumbed to his injuries. And I collected a lot of pieces from that crime scene. This was one of them. And I have a bag now of materials that I take and will take to schools to educate young people, Governor, about how you can dramatically change someone's life. Bridget Ambrose, Caitlin Ambrose, the city council, all of us in Orange, we will never be the same. We will never, ever, ever be the same. At Steve's candlelight vigil, and this is the candle from the night we vigilized him on Santiago Canyon Road, just down the street from the church where my family attends. And I want to read you a quote in closing about what Steve said about himself. I think it's important for you to understand not only who Steve Ambrose is, but what he will continue to be as a result of this bill now, 808, which is named after him. This is a Steve Ambrose law. And in California, if we save a life, Steve will have completed everything he was committed to as a public servant. He said, "I know that in my young life, I have made an impact in the life of others. I know that in the big picture, I have made a difference in the community. And in the end, I will be well rewarded for my dedication and commitment to my community. Most importantly, I know that I would not be where I am today if not for the community that I love." Steve Ambrose, we love you. We want you to know that you will live on forever. And Governor, we appreciate you signing 808 because you now, sir, ensure that the memory of Steve Ambrose will live on in perpetuity. Thank you very much, sir. At this time, it's my honor to introduce Assemblywoman Sharon Runner.
Thank you, Todd. I know this has been very difficult. I remember when you talked about Steve on the floor of the legislature, and my sympathies go out to you, Bridget, and Caitlin, who I got to see a picture of your daddy in your little locket there. So I know it's tough. My condolences to all of his family. Governor, too, thank you for signing these bills that really more appropriately penalize those who drink and drive. Thank you to the CHP officers across the state who actually almost daily have to share the tragic news of the death of a loved one, all too often because of drinking and driving. Just last weekend in Sacramento, 2 teenagers lost their lives because of drinking and driving. Alcohol is involved in 1/3 of all youth traffic fatalities associated also with violence, suicide, education failures. The costs are more than $50 billion per year in lost lives, lost productivity, and healthcare costs. In my bill, we do 3 things. Teenagers are fined more for their first offense. You know, these kids are out there buying $5 coffee drinks. A $100 fine is nothing to them. So it increases their fines for the first time and the second time. It clarifies the language in our penal codes that allows them to have their driver's license suspended for 1 year. That's really important to teenagers. I have a teenager. That would be devastating to her. Also deals with those who provide fake IDs with a $1,000 fine and 24 hours of community service. We have to use all the tools that we have to save lives. We have had advertising. The alcohol and beverage people have done what they can to advertise and say, don't drink and drive, but we need to do more as deterrents to keep these kids and families alive, and especially in the loss of this very important young man. I am here to introduce Assemblyman John Benoit. He is one of my colleagues and has put public safety as his #1 issue, being a former CHP captain. So, John, join us.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today with Governor Schwarzenegger and my colleagues. The comments made by my good friend Todd Spitzer relative to the loss of this pillar of the community, I won't repeat. They're absolutely accurate, and I remember, too, his very compelling discussion on the floor. And that's where I am pleased to be able to serve today as a member of the State Assembly. However, I did 29 years with the California Highway Patrol prior to my election to the State Assembly. And as I walk into this office, where actually I had several assignments, I never worked here for a long time, but I did actually do work here for short periods of time. It is very, very similar to the Glendale office, the Indio office, the Bakersfield office in layout and floor plan design, state prison built furniture. I feel like I'm going to B-Watch briefing when I walk through the door there. And I understand that Commissioner Brown, you're working on maybe trying to get a new one for these guys. I heard the conversation this morning because it certainly deserved. This building has served its time. But as a CHP officer, I also made approximately 1,000 DUI arrests in the years that I was on the beat. And I have seen all variations. I have seen the tragedies. I had the unfortunate responsibility of 4 officers killed under my command to deal with the fallout of that kind of a tragedy, but also visited at the scene of many, many, many serious accidents. My thanks to MAD. I was with Candy Leitner in 1982 in the Commissioner's office when I was working there, and MAD and groups like MAD changed dynamically the way this society deals with drinking and driving. They started the path. When I was a young officer, if a person didn't have a .20 blood alcohol level, we would hardly get prosecution. That's just a short 29 years ago. No, it's about 30 plus years ago. Yeah. Well, but things have changed dramatically. I mean, today, if you're a .08, you're going to be in front of a jury if you don't plead guilty to something. It's pretty serious. Yeah, I heard that all the time. I can tell you in L.A. County where I was working, it was tough to get a serious prosecution of anybody less than a .15, and we know just how serious a problem that is. And now today, the outcome of those changes is a much tougher stance. We've convinced most Americans of what serious problem it is for driving under the influence. Those that we're arresting more and more are the ones that have a problem and they're getting arrested multiple times. But this change in the law, which I full-heartedly supported as soon as I saw it on the floor, I spoke to that, is huge. It's something we should have done years ago, and I commend Assemblywoman Parr and Assemblywoman Spitzer for recognizing the need and fixing this oversight, and it will help a lot. So I'm pleased to stand here today with this governor who has signed several of my other bills, this bill today, and has been a real friend to law enforcement, and thank him for the support he's giving to my former colleagues, but more importantly for the changes he's going to make in California during his governorship. And we really appreciate your support, sir. Thank you. And now my pleasure to introduce Assemblyman Ted Gaines, a good friend and a new colleague to the Assembly who's passed a bill that I was proud to co-sponsor.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity to highlight AB 678, which is a piece of legislation that relates personally to an experience I had with a neighbor in terms of a young girl that grew up with my daughter Caroline, who shared a back fence with us, and just a great girl, high school girl, who was hit on Auburn Folsom Road in my district in Placer County, and the individual left the scene of the crime, and she was killed. And it was just devastating to see such a promising young high school girl lose her life, and then have the perpetrator drive away thinking that she had shot or she had run into an animal. And so this deals with vehicular manslaughter. And in those cases, when someone is involved in an accident with vehicular manslaughter, while intoxicated or not, we're going to add an additional 5 years to the prison term, regardless of whether they're negligent, if they flee from the crime. And so this is just, I'm so grateful that the governor signed this legislation that we can get tough on individuals that are irresponsible when they get behind the wheel. And we have an obligation to our society, to our children, and to our families that we do everything we can to keep them safe. So thank you. And if I can introduce Assemblyman Bill Mays, who is my seatmate in the Assembly. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure for me to be here as well. I want to thank the governor very much for signing 1165, new bill that deals with those who are on probation from previous DUI offenses. I'm the author of the bill. The sponsor, of course, are CHP folks in Sacramento, who I've worked with diligently these past 5 years. I worked with Mothers Against Drug Driving for many, many years as a local county supervisor. We need to resolve that, in fact, we're not going to tolerate this type of activity in California. We need to be helping individuals who have these type of problems to get them off, get them rehabilitated, but more importantly, we got to keep them off the road. And so we appreciate what's taking place. We thank you for the great work that my colleagues, as you've seen, have introduced a great host of bills this year that are very important for our society as a whole. We thank you to the governor, who's been a real attack dog on this issue, and all the time he's been our governor, and he'll continue to work in these areas, so we really commend him for stepping to the plate in a time when we recognize we need to be the leaders. As he mentioned, we need to be leaders not only in California, but the country as a whole, and we continue to set trends and precedents that other people will see that, you know what, we said no more, enough's enough, and we're taking these actions. So, again, our congratulations to each of the legislators here on the bills that have been signed, to Amber and their family, and Todd for the great job that you and Nicole done, and Governor, thank you again very much. Bless all of them.
Thank you.
Yes. It is my great pleasure now to introduce our commander of the CHP for California, Commander Mike Brown.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be here today. Last year in California, we lost 4,197 souls on our highways. A good number of those came as a result of DUI. California, over the years, has led the nation in laws protecting the people who have used the roadways, and we're doing it again here today. The story that you heard today about Steve is frankly repeated on a daily basis here on the roads in California. And we need to stop that. We can stop that. And the actions taken today The leadership shown by our governor and the legislature, the members here behind us who got the message and carried it through the legislature, is huge. Don't drink and drive. You know what? We will save a life, probably more than one. And maybe we can stop the stories that we've heard today from ever happening again. Again, I thank the governor for his leadership and the members here, and also the members that voted for these very important pieces of legislation. We will keep California safe. Now, it's my privilege to introduce somebody from an organization that has been very big on this scene for a lot of years. When I first started 30 years ago, we did struggle with trying to take the drunks off the road. And then a situation happened and an organization grew, and it's grown into becoming a leader in the private sector to deal with the public problem of drinking and driving. And it's my privilege to introduce to you Gail Butler, the Executive Director of MAD in Orange County. Gail?
The Underage law is a veritable 1-2 punch in the fight to eliminate drunk driving. Legislation such as this is a significant step toward ensuring that drunk driving will someday be abolished, not only in our state, but also in this country. MAD greatly appreciates the effort of Assemblypersons Parra and Spitzer in authoring AB 808 and is grateful to our governor for signing the bill into law. To require all drivers applying for or renewing a driver's license to acknowledge in writing that they have been advised of the dangers of driving while under the influence of alcohol or drugs greatly enhances MAD's campaign to eliminate drunk driving. Too many people in this country continue to die at the hands of drunk drivers. The Underage law ensures that at the very least, Californians will be cognizant of the potential effects of such actions. The Underage law is a huge step toward eradicating once and for all a violent crime and a public health threat that kills over 13,000 Americans every year. Thank you.
Before we take some questions, I have here the bills that I would like to hand out to everyone behind me. I think we should start right away with the man that really has worked very hard on this, and is Todd Spitzer here.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is it okay with you, Governor? If it's okay with you, I'd also like to present Bridget and Caitlin with a copy of the bill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I had one for her, but that's it.
I'm good.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
You know why? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Two more left.
That's okay, Your Honor.
Any questions about this, please? Feel free to ask.
To inform the people today, you have to show that you've gone through a drunk driving program, but now just signing saying, I know, someone's going to attack that. Who is going to prove that they do know the dangers? How are they going to do that?
Well, first of all, the law, that there is this new law and that we have signed a bill, the ones that are going to get that information out to the people of California is all of you. That's why we appreciate so much that you are here today and are part of this ceremony. And then Todd is going to answer your specific question.
Thank you very much, Governor. I agree with this premise that, first of all, let's acknowledge it's going to take time over time as people renew their licenses. For example, I just renewed my license, and I had to go to the DMV after doing 2 renewals by mail. So it's going to take a period of years before we have everybody in the state of California who has authorized their signature and signed. So it's going to take time. But I'm also trying to balance the impact of somebody who's never had a criminal history, who has too much to drink, and normally it'd be a first-time DUI, which would be no jail time in most circumstances, but in this instance they killed somebody, and making sure that the scales of justice are fair. And so I plan to, in conjunction with other law enforcement officials, launch a campaign here in Orange County that I hope will take off everywhere else. And it will be posters in conjunction with the Restaurant Association that will advertise in restaurants and bars that if you drink and drive and you've acknowledged it, that you could be charged with murder. And the slogan will go something to the effect of, if you don't think that being charged with murder would change your life, then you've obviously had too much to drink. And that's a sentence. And then the next sentence is, please stop and think. And so in conjunction with that public education campaign, the DMV, mailing out to every citizen, the word of the media, I think we're going to do a great job educating. And then your specific legal questions are following. In a court of law, when you're trying to prove the mental state of the defendant, which you have to prove in murder, the admission of a Department of Motor Vehicle is an official document, and it's self-authenticating, and it comes into evidence as an official governmental record. And so that would shift the burden of proof then to the defendant to explain, even though his or her signature is on that form, that somehow they still did not know that drinking and driving resulting in death could lead to their own prosecution. And I think all of you would agree, it doesn't make sense, does it, Governor, that today we all know drinking and driving is dangerous. But Tony Rakakis is the district attorney of Orange County, and his line prosecutors still have to prove every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. And the mental state is an element of the crime, and it has to be proven. And the only way you can prove it is by submitting the form in court. And then the defendant can take the stand after the burden's been shifted, although they don't have to take the stand. They have a constitutional right not to. But if they do, then they can explain to the jury how they still did not know that drinking and driving is dangerous.
Any other question? Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.